The stars looked different now. Captain Vexithar of the exploration ship Starwind knew this as he stared at the view screen. His blue-scaled hands gripped the command chair as his crew worked at their stations. They had been mapping this empty region of space for weeks, looking for useful minerals or salvage. "Captain, we have something strange on sensors," said his science officer. The young Zephyrian's voice carried excitement and worry. "It's big. Really big." Vexithar moved to the sensor station. What he saw made his breath catch. A massive object drifted in the void ahead of them. It was huge, longer than 50 of his ships placed end to end. The metal hull was dark and covered with strange markings that his computer could not read. "Is it a ship?" he asked. "I think so, sir. But the materials are unknown. The design is like nothing in our databases. It's been drifting here for a very long time." Vexithar ordered his crew to move closer. As they approached, he could see that the object was indeed a ship, but unlike any vessel he had ever seen. It had smooth curves mixed with sharp angles. Weapons that looked both beautiful and deadly dotted its hull. Even dead and cold, it looked dangerous. "Sir, I'm reading very faint energy signatures," the science officer reported. "Deep inside the ship. Something is still alive in there." Before Vexithar could respond, every alarm on his ship started screaming. The massive ship was waking up. Light began to flow along the hull like blood through veins. Sections that had looked damaged started to repair themselves. Metal flowed like liquid, sealing cracks and rebuilding broken parts. The ship grew brighter and brighter until it blazed with power. "Captain, it's scanning us," his weapons officer shouted. "The energy readings are off the scale. This thing has more power than our entire fleet." Inside the awakening ship, Captain Jake Morrison opened his eyes for the first time in thousands of years. The cryogenic pod hissed as it opened, and cold air filled his lungs. His body felt stiff and strange, but the medical systems had kept him healthy during his long sleep. "Welcome back, Captain Morrison," said a calm voice. It was Phoenix, the ship's artificial intelligence. "I hope you slept well. You have been in stasis for 2,847 years." Morrison sat up slowly, his mind trying to process what Phoenix had told him. Nearly 3,000 years. It seemed impossible, but he knew it was true. He and his crew had gone to sleep with a purpose. Now it was time to wake up. "Status report," he said, his voice rough from the long sleep. "All ship systems are coming online. We have detected an alien vessel nearby. They appear to be peaceful explorers, but they have transmitted our location to their government. We can expect company soon." Morrison nodded and stood up. Around him, other cryogenic pods were opening. Men and women in military uniforms stepped out, all looking as confused as he felt. These were his officers, the best and brightest humanity had to offer. Commander Lisa Hayes was the first to reach him. She had been his tactical officer before they went to sleep, and she would be again now that they were awake. Her dark hair was shorter than he remembered, cut in a practical military style. "Jake," she said, using his first name as she always did when they were alone. "How long?" "Almost 3,000 years, he replied. "Phoenix says there's an alien ship nearby. They've seen us wake up." Dr. Ben Carter joined them next. The science officer looked around at the awakening crew with bright, curious eyes. Even after sleeping for centuries, he was eager to learn new things. "The galaxy must be very different now," Carter said. "Phoenix, what have you learned while we slept?" "I have been monitoring communications across known space," the AI replied. "The political situation has changed dramatically. The species we once knew have built a loose alliance called the Galactic Coalition. They control most of inhabited space." Morrison felt a cold knot form in his stomach. The Coalition? He remembered why humanity had chosen to hide instead of fighting alongside the other species. They had tried to warn everyone about the coming threat, but nobody would listen. The aliens had been too busy fighting each other to pay attention to human warnings. "And our enemy?" Morrison asked quietly, still approaching. "My calculations suggest they will reach the outer rim of the galaxy within 50 to 70 years. Morrison closed his eyes. The Devourers were still coming, just as humanity had predicted. The enemy that consumed entire galaxies was almost here, and the other species still didn't know what was waiting for them. "Sir," Hayes said, "we should contact Admiral Duncan. He'll want to know about our situation." Morrison nodded. Admiral Roy Duncan was the overall commander of their mission. He would be waking up soon in his own section of the ship. But first, Morrison needed to deal with the alien vessel watching them. Phoenix, open a channel to the alien ship. Let's see what they want. The view screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the Zephyrian vessel. Captain Vexithar looked nervous but curious. His large eyes studied Morrison with obvious interest. I am Captain Vexthar of the Zephyrian Republic, the alien said. His voice was translated by their computers. You are human, are you not? We thought your species was extinct. Morrison smiled coldly. Not extinct, just sleeping. I am Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship Liberty. We've been waiting for the right time to wake up. Waiting for what? For the galaxy to grow up enough to listen to us, Morrison replied. But I'm not sure that time has come yet. Behind him, more crew members were waking up. The ship's corridors filled with the sounds of humanity returning to life. Engineers worked to bring all systems online. Scientists began reviewing data that Phoenix had collected over the centuries. Morrison looked back at the alien captain. You should probably call your government, Captain Vexthar. Tell them the humans are back. Tell them everything is about to change. The communication ended, leaving the bridge quiet except for the hum of awakening systems. Morrison looked around at his crew, his friends who had chosen to sleep for thousands of years to protect a galaxy that had rejected them. Are we ready for this? Hayes asked quietly. Morrison watched through the view screen as more alien ships began to appear in the distance. Word was spreading fast. Soon the entire galaxy would know that humanity had returned. We've been ready for 3,000 years, he said. Now it's time to find out if they're ready for us. News traveled fast across the galaxy. Within 3 days of the Liberty's awakening, ships from dozens of different species began arriving in the area. They came in groups, each faction watching the others as much as they watched the mysterious human vessel. The Krex Empire sent their largest warships, dark and angular vessels bristling with weapons. The Mindari Collective arrived in smooth white ships that hummed with psychic energy. The Vorthan Republic brought their trading vessels, hoping to profit from whatever technology the humans might possess. Admiral Roy Duncan finally woke up on the third day. The old man moved slowly as he left his cryogenic pod, but his eyes were sharp and alert. He had commanded humanity's greatest military forces before the long sleep, and he was ready to do so again. Status report, Duncan said as he entered the main bridge. Captain Morrison stood at attention, along with the other senior officers. We have 43 alien vessels surrounding us at various distances, Morrison reported. They're maintaining what they think is a safe distance, but they're definitely studying us. Duncan nodded and looked at the tactical display. The alien ships formed a loose circle around the Liberty, but none of them came too close. They were curious but cautious, which was smart of them. Have they made any demands yet? Duncan asked. Several. The Krex want us to surrender our ship for inspection. The Mindari want to conduct telepathic scans of our crew. The Vorthans want to establish trade agreements. Morrison paused. They all seem to think they're in charge out here. Duncan smiled grimly. 3,000 years and they still don't understand how the galaxy really works. Very well. Let's remind them. The Admiral called for a meeting with the alien fleet commanders. After some discussion among the various species, they agreed to send representatives to a neutral location. A large Vorthan trading station was moved into the area to serve as a meeting place. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster led the human diplomatic team. She was young but smart, with short blonde hair and bright blue eyes that missed nothing. Beside her walked Dr. Kate Williams, a scientist who had spent years before the long sleep studying alien languages and cultures. Remember, Admiral Duncan told them before they left, we're not here to negotiate. We're here to explain reality to them. The meeting took place in a large conference room aboard the Vorthan station. Representatives from 12 different species sat around a circular table. They all looked at the two human women with mixtures of curiosity, suspicion, and poorly hidden fear. Admiral Thokvar of the Krex Empire spoke first. He was a large creature with thick armor-like skin and red eyes that glowed with anger. Humans, he said in a voice like grinding stone, you will submit to coalition authority. Your vessel will be inspected and registered according to galactic law. Foster looked at the alien admiral for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was calm and polite. Admiral Thokvar, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We don't submit to anyone. We never have. You have no choice, Thokvar replied. This galaxy operates under coalition law. All ships must be registered. All weapons must be approved. All technology must be shared for the common good. Dr. Williams leaned forward slightly. Admiral, may I ask what you know about human history? A Mindari representative, a tall creature with pale skin and large eyes, answered instead. Your species was involved in the border wars 3,000 years ago. You suffered heavy losses and retreated to the edge of known space. Most records indicate you became extinct shortly after. Extinct, Foster repeated slowly. Is that what you thought? What else could we think? Said a Vorthon trader. Your colonies went silent. Your ships disappeared. There was no trace of human activity anywhere in the galaxy. Foster smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. We weren't extinct, Admiral. We were watching, learning, preparing for what? Thokvar demanded. For the day we would need to save you from yourselves, Foster replied. The room erupted in angry voices. Several species began shouting at once, demanding explanations. Others made threats. The Krex Admiral stood up, his hand moving toward his weapon. Enough, Dr. Williams said quietly, but her voice carried clearly over the noise. Something in her tone made everyone stop talking. You want to know where humanity has been for 3,000 years? You want to know what we've been doing while you've been fighting your little wars and building your little empires? She activated a small device and holographic images filled the air above the table. The aliens stared in shock at what they saw. Human ships, thousands of them hidden throughout the galaxy, some disguised as asteroids, others buried inside dead planets, still others floating in the dark spaces between stars. We've been watching you, Williams continued. Every war you've fought, every treaty you've signed, every technological advance you've made. We know everything about you. Your strengths, your weaknesses, your fears. Impossible, whispered a Zephyrian representative. Our sensors would have detected such a fleet. Your sensors see what we want them to see, Foster said. Just as your governments know only what we want them to know. Thokvar's red eyes blazed with fury. You dare spy on the Krex Empire? This is an act of war. No, Admiral, Foster replied calmly. This is an act of preparation. You see, while you've all been busy conquering each other, we've been getting ready for the real enemy. What enemy? Demanded the Mindari representative. Dr. Williams changed the holographic display. Now it showed images of dark space, of stars going out one by one, of entire solar systems that had simply vanished. The same enemy we tried to warn you about 3,000 years ago, Williams said. The same enemy you were too proud and too stupid to listen to us about. They're called the Devourers, and they're coming. The alien representative stared at the images in growing horror. Some of them recognized the patterns of destruction. Others had heard old legends about the darkness between the stars. This is why we disappeared, Foster explained. Not because we were defeated, but because we knew that trying to fight alongside you would be useless. You were too busy fighting each other to prepare for the real threat, so we decided to prepare alone. And now? Asked the Zephyrian captain who had first discovered the Liberty. What do you want from us now? Foster looked around the table at all the alien faces. Fear, anger, pride, and confusion warred in their expressions. These were the leaders of civilizations that controlled thousands of worlds, and they were finally beginning to understand how small they really were. We want you to survive, Foster said simply. Whether you deserve to or not, we want you to live through what's coming. But that means accepting some hard truths, such as, Thokvar asked, though his voice had lost much of its earlier aggression. Such as the fact that humanity is no longer the species you remember, Dr. Williams said. We've had 3,000 years to advance our technology, to solve problems you can't even imagine. We've become something more than we were. Are you threatening us? Asked the Mindari representative. Foster smiled sadly. We don't need to threaten you. If we wanted to conquer the galaxy, we would have done it already. If we wanted to destroy you, you would already be dead. We're not here as conquerors or destroyers. Then what are you? Whispered the Vorthon trader. We're your only hope, Foster replied. And whether you like it or not, we're the only thing standing between you and the end of everything you've ever known. The meeting ended in silence. The alien representatives returned to their ships with much to think about. Some would choose to believe the human warnings. Others would dismiss them as lies or tricks. But all of them would remember the calm confidence in the human voices, and the terrible certainty that everything they thought they knew about the galaxy was wrong. Admiral Thokvar was not used to being told what to do. For 200 years he had commanded the largest fleet in the Krex Empire. Entire star systems bowed before his ships. Alien species paid tribute to avoid his wrath. The idea that humans of all creatures would dare to threaten him was beyond belief. Gather the fleet, he ordered his officers. All of it. Within a week, over 500 warships had assembled in the space around the human vessel. Krek's dreadnoughts floated alongside Vorthon battlecruisers and Mindari PSI ships. It was the largest military force the Galaxy had seen in centuries, all pointed at one human ship. The aliens had convinced themselves that the humans were bluffing. Yes, their ship was large and well-armed, but it was still just one ship against hundreds. The humans might have hidden for 3,000 years, but surely they couldn't have advanced that much. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Chief Engineer Carl Brooks stood in the Liberty's engineering section, watching power levels climb across his displays. The ship's fusion reactors were coming online one by one, each one more powerful than anything the aliens had ever built. "All systems ready, sir," he reported to the bridge. "Defensive fields at full strength. Weapons charged and ready." On the bridge, Admiral Duncan watched the alien fleet position itself around his ship. The aliens thought they were being clever, spreading out to attack from multiple angles. They had no idea that their tactics were 3,000 years out of date. "Sir," reported Commander Hayes from her tactical station, "the aliens are demanding we surrender immediately. They say they'll destroy us if we don't comply." Duncan almost smiled. "Open a channel to the fleet." The main screen lit up with the faces of alien commanders from across the Coalition fleet. Thakvar's red eyes burned with anger, while other species looked nervous but determined. "Humans," Thakvar announced, "you are outnumbered 500 to 1. Surrender now or face the consequences." "Admiral," Duncan replied calmly, "are you sure you want to do this? We've given you fair warning about what's coming. This is your last chance to listen to reason." "The time for talk is over," Thakvar snarled. "All ships open fire." The alien fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons, particle beams, antimatter missiles, and psychic force blasts all converged on the Liberty. The space around the human ship lit up like a star as hundreds of weapons struck their target. The aliens cheered as the light faded, expecting to see debris where the human ship had been. Instead, they saw the Liberty floating exactly where it had been before, completely undamaged. "Impossible," whispered a Vorthon captain. "Nothing could survive that much firepower." On the Liberty's bridge, the crew hadn't even felt the attack. Their defensive systems had absorbed the energy from every weapon fired at them, storing it for later use. "Sir," Hayes reported, "enemy weapons had no effect. Our shields didn't even register the impact." Duncan nodded. It was time to show the aliens what 3,000 years of human advancement had accomplished. "Dr. Carter, begin the demonstration." Dr. Ben Carter stood at his science station, his hands moving over controls that the aliens couldn't even imagine. The Liberty's most advanced weapons weren't based on simple physics like theirs. They worked by manipulating the basic forces of reality itself. "Quantum displacement field ready," Carter reported, "targeting 3 Krek's dreadnoughts." "Fire," Duncan ordered quietly. 3 of the largest ships in the alien fleet simply stopped existing. They didn't explode or break apart. They didn't fade away or disappear. One moment they were there, and the next moment they had never been there at all. Even the memories of their crews were gone, as if those ships and everyone aboard them had never existed. The alien fleet fell silent. Captains stared at empty space where their comrades had been moments before. Some tried to remember what had been there but found only confusion in their minds. "What did you do?" Thakvar demanded, his voice shaking. "We removed them from this reality," Carter explained calmly. "They're not dead, Admiral. They simply never were. Your quantum sensors will find no trace of them because there is no trace to find." "That's impossible," a Mindari commander protested. "You can't just erase matter from existence." "Matter, energy, space, time," Carter continued. "We've learned to manipulate them all. What you just saw was our gentlest weapon. We have others that are far more creative." Admiral Duncan leaned forward in his command chair. "Now do we have your attention?" The alien fleet had stopped firing. Ship captains looked at each other in growing panic, trying to understand what they had witnessed. Their most powerful weapons had been useless against the human ship, while the humans had casually erased 3 massive warships from existence. "This is some kind of trick," Thakvar said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Some kind of illusion." "Dr. Carter," Duncan said, "perhaps another demonstration is in order." Carter's hands moved over his controls again. This time he activated a different system. Gravity fields began to form around dozens of alien ships, not enough to crush them but enough to hold them perfectly still. "Temporal distortion field activated," Carter reported. "Enemy ships are now experiencing time at 1,000th normal speed." The alien crews found themselves moving like statues. Their thoughts slowed to a crawl. A single heartbeat took minutes. They could see and hear everything happening around them, but they couldn't move or speak or even blink. From their perspective, they're trapped for the next several days, Carter explained to the unfrozen ships. From our perspective, we'll release them in about 30 seconds. True to his word, Carter deactivated the field after half a minute. The trapped ship suddenly returned to normal time, their crews gasping and panicking as they realized what had happened to them. "How?" whispered a Zephyrian captain. "How is any of this possible?" 3,000 years, Admiral Duncan replied. 3,000 years of focused research while you were playing politics and fighting each other. We've learned to see reality as it truly is, not as you think it should be. Brooks stepped forward from his engineering station. "Our ships don't just use energy, Admiral. We create it. We don't just manipulate matter. We design it. We don't travel through space and time. We reshape them to suit our needs." The alien fleet commanders looked at each other in growing despair. Everything they thought they knew about warfare, about technology, about the basic laws of physics had just been proven wrong. "What do you want from us?" asked a Vorthon trader, his voice small and defeated. "We want you to survive," Duncan replied. "But survival requires accepting reality. The reality is that humanity has moved far beyond where we were when you last knew us. We're not the same species that fought alongside you 3,000 years ago." "You're gods," whispered the Mindari commander. "No," Duncan said firmly. "We're still human, but we're human in ways you can't understand yet. We've learned to think bigger, to see further, to reach beyond the limits that once confined us." He gestured toward the alien fleet. "You have a choice now. You can accept our help and learn to work with us against the real enemy that's coming, or you can continue to fight among yourselves while the galaxy burns around you." "And if we choose to fight you?" Thokvar asked, though his earlier anger had been replaced by fear. Duncan's expression didn't change. "Then you'll lose. Completely and permanently. But we'd rather you chose to live." The alien fleet hung in space, silent and motionless. Their commanders knew they had witnessed something that changed everything. The humans hadn't just demonstrated superior technology. They had shown that the entire foundation of galactic civilization was built on outdated assumptions. "Think carefully," Duncan advised them. "The enemy we warned you about is still coming. You can face them with us or you can face them alone, but you will face them one way or another." The communication channels went silent as the alien commanders tried to process what they had seen and heard. Some of them were already beginning to understand that their old world was ending, and a new one was about to begin. The news of humanity's return spread across the galaxy like wildfire, but as reports came in from distant sectors, the aliens began to understand that the Liberty was not alone. Human ships were revealing themselves everywhere, appearing from hiding places that had kept them invisible for thousands of years. Colonel Steve Johnson commanded one of the smaller human vessels, a ship called the Defiance. For 3,000 years, it had been disguised as a simple asteroid floating near a busy Vorthon trade route. Now it shed its camouflage and appeared in orbit around the trading world of Vorth Prime. The planet's defense forces scrambled their ships, but Johnson opened communications before anyone could fire. "This is Colonel Johnson of the human ship Defiance," he announced to the startled Vorthons. "We've been your neighbors for a very long time. We thought it was time to introduce ourselves properly." Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Commander Helen Price revealed her science vessel, the Explorer, from within what the aliens had thought was just an empty nebula. Captain Lucy Adams brought her ship, the Retribution, out of hiding near a Mindari colony world. Everywhere the aliens looked, they found that humans had been watching them. Admiral Duncan sat in his ready room aboard the Liberty, reviewing reports from human ships across the galaxy. The scale of their preparation was becoming clear even to him. Humanity hadn't just hidden a few ships, they had hidden an entire civilization. "Admiral," Captain Morrison said as he entered the room, "we have a problem. Some of the alien governments are talking about forming an alliance against us. The Kreks are trying to convince the others that we're the real threat." Duncan nodded. He had expected this reaction. Fear often made people do stupid things, and the alien species were very afraid right now. "How many ships have revealed themselves so far?" Duncan asked. "Over 3,000, sir, and that's just the ones in populated sectors. We estimate there are at least 10,000 more still hidden in deep space." Duncan leaned back in his chair, 10,000 ships, each one more advanced than anything the aliens possessed. It was a fleet large enough to conquer the entire galaxy in a matter of weeks. Sir, Morrison continued, I think it's time we told them the whole truth about why we really left. About what's coming, Duncan agreed. The demonstration of human power had gotten the aliens' attention, but fear alone wouldn't unite them. They needed to understand what they were really facing. The Admiral called for another meeting, this time with representatives from every major government in the galaxy. They gathered aboard a neutral space station, their faces showing mixtures of fear, anger, and desperate curiosity. Ambassador Frank Miller led the human delegation this time. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes, chosen specifically because he looked less threatening than the military officers. Beside him sat Dr. Carter, ready to provide scientific explanations. 3,000 years ago, Miller began, humanity made a discovery that changed everything we thought we knew about the universe. We found evidence of something approaching our galaxy from the void between galaxies. He activated a holographic display that showed the Milky Way galaxy from above. Dark shadows moved at the edges, slowly but steadily approaching the bright spiral arms. We called them the Devourers, Miller continued. They're not a species as you understand the term. They're something else entirely, something that feeds on the energy that binds matter together. A Zephyrian representative raised her hand. You're talking about the old legends, the darkness between the stars. Most of us considered those to be myths. They're not myths, Dr. Carter said firmly. They're warnings left by previous civilizations. Civilizations that no longer exist because they didn't take the threat seriously. The display changed, showing images of dead galaxies. Dark cold spirals where no stars shone. Entire galactic clusters reduced to lifeless dust clouds. The Devourers have consumed thousands of galaxies, Carter explained. They move slowly, taking centuries to cross the void between targets. But once they arrive, they're unstoppable by conventional means. What exactly do they do? Asked a Mindari commander. They break down the nuclear forces that hold atoms together, Carter replied. Stars collapse into neutron soup. Planets dissolve into their component particles. All the energy released feeds them, making them stronger. Admiral Thakvar, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. You're saying that our entire galaxy is going to be eaten? Unless we stop them, Miller replied. That's why humanity disappeared. We tried to warn everyone 3,000 years ago, but you were all too busy fighting each other to listen, so we made a difficult choice. You abandoned us, accused a Vorthon traitor. We prepared, Miller corrected. While you fought your wars and built your empires, we focused everything on solving one problem: how to fight an enemy that operates beyond normal physics. Dr. Carter stood and moved to the holographic display. The Devourers exist partially outside our normal space-time. That's why conventional weapons can't hurt them. You can't fight something that isn't entirely in your reality. But you found a way? Asked the Zephyrian representative. We found several ways, Carter replied. But it required completely rethinking everything we thought we knew about science and technology. We had to learn to manipulate reality at the quantum level, to step outside normal space-time ourselves. The alien representatives stared at the display showing the approaching threat. Some of them were beginning to understand the scope of what humanity had undertaken. How long do we have? Asked a Krex general. 50 to 70 years before they reach the outer rim, Carter replied. Maybe a century before they penetrate to the core worlds. It sounds like a long time, but preparing for this kind of enemy takes decades. Miller leaned forward. This is why we revealed ourselves now. Not because we want to conquer you, but because we're running out of time to prepare you. Prepare us for what? Thakvar demanded. To fight beside us, Miller replied simply. To learn new technologies. To think in ways you've never thought before. To become more than you are now. A long silence fell over the meeting room. The alien representatives looked at each other, trying to process what they had heard. Some looked skeptical, others frightened, still others thoughtful. You're asking us to trust you, said the Mindari commander, to put our entire civilization in your hands. We're asking you to survive, Miller replied. Trust is secondary to survival. And if we refuse? Asked the Vorthon traitor. Dr. Carter answered this time. Then you'll face the Devourers with the technology you have now. Plasma weapons that they'll ignore. Ships that can't maneuver in twisted space-time. Defenses that protect against physical attacks when the enemy operates on quantum levels. In other words, Miller added gently, you'll lose. Completely and permanently, the Zephyrian representative spoke up. What would working with you involve? What would you require of us? Integration, Miller replied. Joint crews on some ships, combined research projects, shared intelligence networks. Some of your people would need to learn to think like humans, and some of our people would need to learn to think like you. Why? Asked the Mindari commander. If you're so advanced, why do you need us at all? Miller smiled sadly. Because the Devourers have faced countless species before. They know how humans think, how we fight, how we solve problems, but they've never faced a truly integrated galactic civilization. They've never fought an enemy that combines human innovation with Mindari telepathy, Zephyrian adaptability, Vorthon logistics, and even Krek's determination. You think our diversity is a weapon? Thokvar asked. I think it's our only weapon, Miller replied. The Devourers destroy civilizations by being unpredictable, by operating outside normal reality. The only way to beat them is to be even more unpredictable, to think in ways they can't anticipate. The meeting continued for hours as the aliens asked questions and the humans provided answers. Slowly, some of the representatives began to understand that this wasn't about conquest or submission. It was about survival on a scale they had never imagined. But understanding and acceptance were two different things. As the meeting ended, it was clear that the galaxy remained divided. Some species were ready to work with humanity. Others were still too proud or too afraid to accept help. The question was whether there would be enough time to convince them all before the darkness between the stars finally arrived. The galaxy held its breath as governments across known space debated humanity's offer. Some species, like the Zephyrians, quickly agreed to work with the humans. Captain Vexithar, who had first discovered the Liberty, became an unofficial ambassador between his people and humanity. Others were not so quick to accept. The Krek's empire, led by Admiral Thokvar, saw cooperation as surrender. Their entire culture was built on the idea of conquest and dominance. To bow before any other species, even to save themselves, went against everything they believed. The Vorthon Republic worried about trade. How could they maintain their economic power if humans possessed technology that made their goods worthless? The Mindari collective feared that human mental techniques would somehow interfere with their telepathic abilities. But it was the smaller species that surprised everyone. The Kalari, a peaceful people who had been pushed around by larger empires for centuries, were among the first to volunteer for joint operations. So were the Thylan miners and the Nexus explorers. They had less pride to lose and more to gain from human protection. Admiral Duncan watched these developments from the Bridge of the Liberty. Reports came in daily from human ships across the galaxy. Some told of successful cooperation. Others reported hostility and suspicion. Sir, Commander Hayes said, approaching his command chair, we have a problem. Intelligence reports suggest the Kreks are planning some kind of preemptive strike. Duncan sighed. He had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but he had prepared for it. Details. They're assembling a fleet near the edge of their territory. Over 200 ships, including their newest dreadnoughts. They're calling it a training exercise, but our sources say they plan to attack one of our smaller outposts. Duncan called up the tactical display. The Krek's fleet was positioning itself near the outer rim, where Captain Lucy Adams commanded a small research station. The station was lightly defended, which probably made it look like an easy target to the Kreks. Contact Captain Adams, Duncan ordered. Warn her what's coming. Captain Lucy Adams received the warning with calm professionalism. Her station, Darwin Base, was officially a research facility studying quantum mechanics. In reality, it was one of humanity's most advanced defensive installations disguised to look helpless. Sir, her tactical officer reported. Krek's fleet approaching at maximum speed. They'll be in weapons range in 2 hours. Adams nodded. Begin defensive preparations. But remember, we want to capture them, not destroy them. These people need to learn, not die. The Krek's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel exactly on schedule. Admiral Thokvar himself led the attack, commanding from his flagship, the Dominator. He had brought his most experienced crews and his most powerful weapons. Humans, he broadcast to the research station. You will surrender immediately. This facility will be seized and your technology turned over to the Galactic Coalition. Adams appeared on his screen, looking calm and unworried. Admiral Thokvar, you're making a mistake. Turn around now and we'll pretend this never happened. You are outnumbered 200 to 1, Thokvar snarled. What can you possibly do against my entire fleet? Adams smiled. You're about to find out. All ships open fire. The Krex fleet unleashed everything they had at the small research station. Plasma bolts and antimatter missiles filled space as 200 warships fired at once. The energy released was enough to sterilize a planet. When the light faded, Darwin Base still floated exactly where it had been. Not only was it undamaged, but it looked like nothing had happened at all. Impossible, Thokvar whispered. Phase 1 defenses, Adams announced calmly. Your weapons can't hurt us, Admiral. But ours can certainly hurt you. The research station didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, it activated a field that surrounded the entire Krex fleet. Suddenly, every ship found itself frozen in place, unable to move or fire their weapons. What have you done to us? Thokvar demanded. Quantum stasis field, Adams explained. You're all trapped in a bubble of twisted spacetime. You can see and hear everything, but you can't affect anything outside the bubble. Dr. Carter's voice came over the communication system from the Liberty, several light years away. Don't worry, Admiral. The field is perfectly safe. You'll be released once you've had time to think about your situation. This is an act of war, Thokvar shouted. No, Adams replied, this is a lesson. You tried to attack us with 200 ships. We stopped you without firing a single shot. Do you understand what that means? The Krex Admiral stared at her, his red eyes blazing with fury and growing fear. It means that if we wanted to destroy you, we could do it any time we chose. Adams continued. Your ships, your planets, your entire empire. We could erase you from existence as easily as turning off a light. Then why don't you? Thokvar asked, though his voice had lost most of its anger. Because we need you, Adams replied honestly. The Devourers are coming, and every ship, every warrior, every life is going to matter. We'd rather have you as allies than as memories. The stasis field held the Krex fleet for 3 days. During that time, other alien governments watched and learned. If the mighty Krex Empire could be defeated so easily, what chance did anyone else have against humanity? On the 4th day, Admiral Duncan himself arrived aboard the Liberty. He met with Admiral Thokvar on the Krex flagship. Face to face, Admiral, Duncan said as he entered the Dominator's bridge. I hope you've had time to consider your position. Thokvar looked older than he had a week before. The realization of humanity's true power had shaken him deeply. What do you want from us? He asked quietly. I want you to live, Duncan replied. I want your people to survive what's coming. But I need you to understand something first. Duncan activated a holographic display showing the approaching Devourer fleet. Dark shapes move between the stars, vast and terrible and utterly alien. This is what destroyed the Andromeda Galaxy 2 million years ago, Duncan explained. This is what consumed the Magellanic Clouds. This is what's coming for us now. Thokvar stared at the images in growing horror. How do you fight something like that? Together, Duncan replied. By combining everything we've learned with everything you know. By becoming more than the sum of our parts. The Krex Admiral was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. What would you require of us? Your cooperation. Your knowledge. Your warriors. Duncan paused. And your trust. And in return, you get to keep existing. The meeting between Duncan and Thokvar lasted for hours. When it ended, the Krex Admiral had agreed to a limited partnership. It wasn't complete submission, but it was a beginning. News of the Krex agreement spread quickly. If the most militant species in the galaxy could work with humanity, others could too. Within weeks, a dozen governments had signed cooperation agreements. The Mindari Collective agreed to share their telepathic networks with human researchers. The Vorthan Republic offered their trade routes and logistics expertise. Even smaller species contributed what they could, but not everyone was willing to cooperate. Some species chose isolation, hoping to hide from both humans and Devourers. Others formed their own alliance, determined to find a third option between submission and extinction. Dr. Carter established joint research facilities on a dozen worlds. Human and alien scientists worked together, sharing knowledge and developing new technologies. The humans were careful to limit what they shared. But even their basic concepts revolutionized alien understanding of science. Captain Morrison found himself commanding mixed crews, with aliens serving alongside humans on advanced ships. The integration wasn't always smooth, but it was progress. Sir, Hayes reported from her tactical station, Long-range sensors have detected the first confirmed Devourer scouts at the galaxy's edge. Duncan nodded grimly. The enemy had finally arrived. After 3,000 years of preparation, the real test was about to begin. He looked out at the assembled fleet through the Liberty's viewports. Human ships flew alongside alien vessels, all united under the banner of galactic survival. It wasn't the perfect alliance he had hoped for, but it would have to be enough. All ships, he announced over the fleet communication system. This is Admiral Duncan. The enemy we've been preparing for has arrived. In the coming months and years, we'll be tested in ways we can't imagine. Some of us may not survive. He paused, looking at the faces of his crew. Human and alien officers worked side by side, united by necessity if not by choice. But I want you all to know something, Duncan continued. Today, this galaxy stands united for the first time in its history. Today, we face the darkness not as separate species, but as one people. Whatever happens next, we face it together. The fleet moved out toward the galaxy's edge, carrying the hopes and fears of billions of beings. Behind them, the galaxy continued its ancient dance around the central black hole, unaware that its very existence hung in the balance. And in the void between galaxies, the Devourers sensed the approaching defenders and prepared for a battle unlike any they had fought before. For the first time in millions of years, they faced an enemy that might actually be able to fight back. The real war was about to begin.